Robbie would like to know if you have an existing big code base with no automation, where do you start?
Mm. Yeah. Um. So I guess with I guess with everything, you need to have a solid plan. Um. Look at your existing testing process and pinpoint, where the areas automation would benefit the most, because it's not just about writing automation tests. You also need to make sure that you have like a solid CI pipeline in place, because if you only focus on writing the tests, but for example you don't have a stable test infrastructure, you don't have an automated way of all right, you don't have an automated way of like running your tests on the developers like builds, then like that doesn't really add value at the beginning. So make sure you have a plan and look at the existing testing process, like draw out where you think you'll have automation um, like benefited the most. And then once you have that, you should make a list as to what like test scenarios are you doing manually. So which ones of the scenarios you always do when you do your manual regression, and like um, once you have that list, you just have to start small, like pick one test, and then once you sort of have all the different like data that you need. So for example, if it's like a login test, so you make sure you have a username or a password, you know how to sort of navigate to that scenario manually. Then you can start with the test automation. um, but it's all like you have to start small. You can't just pick out like all the different test cases, because if you start small and then integrate it into your CI pipeline immediately, then you just have to continuously build up your test coverage. And then I guess if you're speaking to like your managers as well, because I know that like some of them, they still see automation as like a waste of money, because you have this massive initial investment. So make sure you explain the benefits to them, because you need to get them on board, because it's gonna take some resources, some extra time to get some automation set up, and explain to them as well that you can't automate everything, because I think that's one of the misconceptions from the business, that okay, we have test automation now, like can you automate this, can you automate that. But then you just have to start with automating the scenarios that are like frequently used, like the high priority scenarios. You don't have to have like 100% test automation coverage. Just start small and then just build your coverage, and then just like repeat the cycle. And I like to also suggest that don't start with choosing tools. Make sure that you understand what your testing requirement is before jumping into picking out a tool. Because if you start with a tool just because, hey, it's a cool new tool, let's try this out, or someone is using this, let's try it out. Every project is different, so you need to understand first what your testing requirements are, and then once you have that drawn out, then you can start choosing your tool. So hopefully that answered it.